Today we're going to talk about estate planning. What is estate planning? Why is it needed? Should we even consider it? First of all, what is estate planning? Well, estate planning is a process of arranging and managing your assets and affairs during your life to ensure that there is efficient distribution and fulfillment of your personal wishes after death. So you might say, okay, that's interesting, but I've always heard of power of attorney. What's that? Well, part of estate planning also includes the designation of powers of attorney, which will allow you to appoint someone to make financial or medical decisions on your behalf in case you become incapacitated, right? So with that in the background of what is estate planning, now we're going to talk about some reasons why you should consider estate planning. So here are some reasons. First of all, it's peace of mind. It's one thing to know you have all these assets, and if something were to happen to you tomorrow, how would those assets be distributed? Do you know exactly how they would be distributed? Do you know who would get what? And if so, are you doing it in a manner that is efficient? You know, there are potential conflicts, maybe, depending on how things are now. But if you take the time out to put a will together, which is, usually the foundation of estate planning, you start there with a will if you haven't done anything before. What it does, it gives you clarity. So you have a sense of what will happen. It also gives you control because you're stating how your assets will be distributed. And then what you could also have is you could have conversations among the beneficiaries to make sure that the way things are distributed will, work in the future. No, you can't always control that because after you pass, then, things may go sideways. However, for now, what you will have is peace of mind that says, heaven forbid something were to happen to me, I know exactly what will happen, I have control over the situation, and I know exactly who will get what, and there won't be any fights. What's the next one? Next one is protecting your loved ones. If you have an estate plan that's properly and thoughtfully crafted, I always suggest a lawyer. If you can't afford a lawyer, then you could always look to a will kit. And in a worst case scenario, you could do a holographic will, and we'll talk about those in other sections. But if you have thoughtfully crafted out an estate plan, the opportunity here is for you to leave your assets to your loved ones, and you know that those loved ones will be taken care of if you are not here. And those could be loved ones that are dependent on you. There could be loved ones who have disabilities. It could be loved ones who are elderly. Or if it's not even individuals, it could be taxes, potential taxes, or potential legal complications. You could use your assets, and if you have an estate plan that's thoughtfully crafted out, you could use your assets to deal with those problems, to deal with those potential complications, and have those dealt with before they become an issue. Next one is minimizing taxes. Big benefit of doing an estate plan is if it's well designed and it's with a professional, you will know what your tax burden potentially will be. And you can start planning towards that. It's one thing to work all your life, have these assets, and you want to pass them on to your beneficiary. However, you have a beneficiary that you didn't count on, and that is the taxman who knocks at the door and says, hey, by the way, I see you have something here for me, and I'm actually a beneficiary, even though I'm not in the will. So if you have taken a time out to do a well-designed plan, the opportunities for you to know exactly what your tax burden will be. And if you know what your tax burden will be, then you could structure it in accordance to how you want your assets distributed. I always say to individuals, there are potentially 3 beneficiaries. The first beneficiary, obviously, logically, is your friends and families, first beneficiary, depending on your circumstances. You could always put it in your will to have it, go to your friends or your families. In most cases, people are leaving it to their families. The second beneficiary that will potentially be is CRA. And the third potential beneficiary, which many people forget, is a charity. But if you structure it really well, you could choose between 2. And most people are going to want to leave it to their family and to charity as opposed to leaving it to the taxman, right? So again, the opportunity for having a well-structured estate plan is that you could minimize taxes. Next one is planning for incapacity. Estate planning involves preparing for unforeseen circumstances. In case you get incapacitated because of illness or accident, what you will have is, if you've drafted what's called a power of attorney, and a power of attorney, there are 2 types. There's one over your financial assets, the other one over your medical situation, and you have an individual who will make decisions on either behalf. And the big thing there is that we don't know what's going to happen, right? I mean, we hope for the best, and we take the best steps in terms of our lives, and we try to avoid circumstances, but sometimes things happen. And if they do, you want to know that whoever is left in charge is knowledgeable, has information in terms of what would you want them to do with your assets, or what decisions you want to have them make on your behalf in terms of medical decisions. And that's a huge part of estate planning, right? Another one is preserving family harmony. We kind of spoke about that before, but if you have quite a bit of assets, right? If you have a lot of assets, estate planning, some people see it as, oh, it's this big obstacle, this big challenge in terms of how am I going to distribute this, and there's going to be fights, and there's going to be quarrels and fuss over who gets what. Well, it's also an opportunity to foster family unity by clearly communicating your wishes and your intention. And it's an opportunity to have openness with your family members. And something you may want to consider, if this is something that you don't want to do alone, then you could reach out to a professional. You could reach out to your financial planner, your lawyer, or the other professionals who could step in and create that space for conversation that would ensure a smooth wealth transition and to continue your legacy in whatever capacity you want it to be continued, right? So there's an opportunity, huge opportunity to preserve family harmony, as opposed to leaving it and not having the conversations beforehand, and then your people challenging the will and all these different back and forths. Again, we spoke about that before. We can't control everything, but having a conversation up front may assist or go at least a long way in preserving the family harmony. So again, estate planning is huge, and these are just few reasons why you should consider having an estate plan done. And it's not a one and done. It's something that you revisit. It's an ongoing process that you revisit as your circumstances change, right? So listen, the one thing we don't know is tomorrow. If we did know tomorrow, we could make all the plans the day before, right? So I encourage you to take the step today to protect your legacy. You've worked hard for what you've built. And even if you haven't necessarily built it, but you inherited it from someone else, they have worked hard. Somebody at some point, in most circumstances, have worked hard to generate this asset or assets or your estate. And so what you should consider doing is at least dealing with that and taking the necessary steps now to make sure that your legacy continues, and it continues with your intentions. Hopefully this was helpful. If it is, like, share, and subscribe. Take care until next time.